Welcome back to the Money Talk Show. This is episode 2 where we're talking about tracking your spending. So, why is it important to track your money? The way I think about it is this: Peter Drucker said something along the lines of what gets measured gets managed. And what that means is if you're not measuring something, it's really difficult to manage it. It's really difficult to change it from baseline. So you got to first know what your baseline is. Otherwise, you're just kind of taking a shot in the dark. So I kind of think about it like this. I used to be a personal trainer, so we tracked calories, right? And I track my calories every single day. I track every morsel of food that goes into my mouth. I'm just throwing anything in my mouth like a crazy person, right? So if you're tracking your calories, you know exactly how much you need to take in order to either lose weight or to gain weight because it's calories in, calories out. And I look at money the same way. If you have no idea what your starting point is, it's very difficult for me to give you any prescription, and it's very difficult for you to figure out how much you should be cutting, how much you can afford to spend. It's very difficult to make changes for for the positive if you don't know where your starting point is. So I think it's really important that you're aware of your current situation before you start moving towards your goals, right? There's something called the Hawthorne effect, and it's this psychological phenomenon, right? Where you basically perform better, your behavior becomes better when somebody is watching you. And that person who's watching you doesn't necessarily have to be another person, it can actually be yourself. So if you're having trouble with your food intake, for instance, right? I always relate it back to that because it's so one to one when it comes to money and fitness. Um, or if you're having trouble with your money, the first thing you need to do is start watching over yourself. And once you become aware of your situation, you're actually like being the person that's over your own shoulder, if that makes sense. So you're tracking your spending, you're seeing exactly how much that you're overspending in a lot of cases. And that's naturally going to make your behavior start to change because you're going to be aware of the problem, right? So you're constantly observing your spending habits, and that's making you aware. So track every dollar. How do we do this? Um, Whenever I talk to people who have never tracked their money before, I say, hey, listen, it's kind of a daunting thing to look at and say, I'm going to track every single transaction, every single dollar. So I always recommend, hey, start with a week of tracking. Put it in your notes app, put it in a Word doc, put it wherever is super easy for you to go to and just type in or text in whatever all of your spending. Some banks even do it yourself. If you only have one bank account, um, a lot of banks even track your spending for you and categorize everything. Uh, and you can also download a tracker app, which I always recommend is the best thing to do in terms of tracking your money because it's super easy. But whatever the case may be, whatever you feel like, or you can use a spreadsheet, right? I have an Excel spreadsheet. I'll start putting it in the description pretty soon for you guys to use yourselves if you like. I always recommend at least 7 days. 7 days of tracking, 30 days is even better. You'll get an even better kind of financial picture where your income is at, where your spending is at, what's going in, what's going out. Once you have a good cash flow picture, then you can start making those changes, right? Another thing that's pretty controversial for some reason is checking your bank account every day. Some people say you should automate everything and never check it again. And I understand, like, maybe there's some psychology behind that, like you just set it and forget it. But for me, I think that being aware is much more important than not having any type of temptation or anything that like set it and forget it is going to benefit you with. I think it's more important every day you check your accounts and make sure everything's running smoothly. So that's making sure that there's no like fraud or anything that's happening in your account, right? Charges that shouldn't be there. Um, your bills are coming out as they're supposed to be. I've been overcharged for tons of different things, and I just call the company and say, "Hey, I was overcharged. What's the reason? Is there something we need to fix?" And I've gotten money back that way. So that happens actually pretty often, to be honest. And I don't see how you're gonna catch those things if you don't have a good picture of what's happening. And you only get that by checking your accounts every day. The other thing that it does is it keeps money on your mind, right? I think you should always keep whatever you're trying to focus on, whatever you're trying to improve in your life, you should keep that at the forefront of your attention. So tracking not only tracking your money consistently, but also just looking at your accounts, right? Kind of keeps that in the forefront of your mind, and it keeps you more motivated for sure. It motivates me every day when I look at my accounts to say, hey, it either motivates me in one or two directions. One is, hey, I'm really proud of what I've achieved, and I want to achieve more, or hey, I'm not at my goals yet, and this is motivating me to continue down the path towards my goals, right? So you're getting some type of a motivation out of checking your accounts, and I think that's much more beneficial than keeping yourself in the dark day by day. So super important. Another thing you're gonna find is like money leaks. What I mean by money leaks is like subscriptions that you didn't know you signed up for, you forgot you signed up for, uh, bills that come out that, like I said, are overpayments. That kind of stuff really can eat into your cash flow, and especially if you're just starting your financial literacy journey, a lot of people aren't going to have a crazy amount of margin. So if your margin in the month is $200 and you're overcharged by $20-$30 every month, and you're not paying attention to that, your real margin is $170, right? So that's a small example of like, hey, your margins can get eaten into just by like little mistakes like that, or fees from your banks. If you don't have the minimum amount in some banks, they charge you a fee, or an overdraft may happen because you weren't paying attention to when your bills came out on certain days and you didn't have enough money in a certain account. Those things can happen, and they do, right? We all make mistakes. So when those things happen, you want to be able to, on the fly, get on those things and adjust them, right? So I think overall awareness of your money extends past just the week or month that you first start tracking and setting things to automate, bill payments and automate investing and all that. That's fantastic, but I think consistently tracking and consistently being aware of your financial situation is something you should never let go of. And absolutely, if you're more on the entrepreneurial side, I always say like there's two types of people. There's the person who just wants to save and invest conservatively and build wealth over a long period of time, and that's 100%. Most people are going to be in that camp, and if most people do that, I think that's a win. I think that's an absolute win. And then you have the more entrepreneurial people who want to run businesses. They want to get a higher return than just what their foundation is in the stock market, and those people need to be even more hyper aware of their situations. And then going into branching into the business side of things, like you would never run a business and have no idea what your accounts look like consistently, right? So what the way I think about it is, in your personal life, in your with your personal finances, you should run that like a business, right? You should run that like a business. And I think the best businesses are the ones that are aware of exactly what's going on in their financial lives, exactly what's coming in, what's going out, exactly where the negatives are and the positives, and exactly how to capitalize, right? Um, and that's like the biggest thing with tracking your money. And that's why you should look at your accounts every single day. It just leads to better awareness and better financial decisions. Cool. So, closing thoughts on this topic is you don't need to change everything overnight, um, but you should just start paying attention. If you take nothing else from this conversation, just start paying attention, right? And that's your first step towards control over your money. And you know that's what we're all about here on the Money Talk Show. All right, guys. I will see you in the next show where we go over another financial topic and we discuss its importance. That's all I have for you today. I'm out.